ערב טוב, היום זה ה-14 אם אני לא טועה, כבר הגענו כן, 14 לחודש. דצמבר, אנחנו לקראת סיום שנה, המון דברים, המון דברים קורים בספיד, אבל כנראה שהגענו לשלב שאין להם שליטה בתוכנית שהם תכננו, הם כבר מאבדים שליטה, כסף, וכנראה שאנחנו לקראת, מי יודע, אם זה לא התמוטטות סופית של כל הכסף המזויף שיצרו בצורת החיים שגרמו לנו לחיות, שהייתה שקר מוחלט, ולכן אנחנו לא מסוגלים גם לראות, כי לא ידענו משהו אחר. כי הם ניהלו את הדברים בחינוך מתחילת הדרך, בכל דבר שגוי, שמטרתם הייתה מסחר בלבד, ואנשים לא היו קיימים במערכת.
Money, lies, faith, and our future. The biblical framework for money. Scripture treats money as a measure, not a God, a stewarded trust, not an entitlement, a witness that testifies truth or falsehood, a servant, never a master. You cannot serve both God and money. Matthew 6:24-24. The problem was never money. The problem was opaque, unjust, manipulable money. Now let's map. First, honest weights and measures maps to ISO 20022 plus ledgered settlement. Dishonest scales are an abomination to the Lord, but accurate weights find favor with him. Proverbs 11:1. The biblical principle is clear. Money must be measurable. Transactions must be verifiable. Value must not be manipulable behind closed doors. The modern mapping shows us ISO 20022 equals structured, standardized financial language. Distributed ledgers equal immutable transaction records. This is the technological restoration of honest weights, money that cannot lie about itself. Second, truth in the gates maps to public verifiable ledgering. Establish justice in the gate, Amos 5:15. The gate was where contracts, trade, and judgment occurred. Economic truth must be publicly auditable. Justice requires visibility. Modern mapping shows blockchain settlement, atomic final transactions, with no hidden reconciliations days later. Opaque settlement systems are unbiblical by design. Ledgered truth restores justice to the gate. Third, stewardship over ownership maps to custody and segregation of assets. Moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. 1 Corinthians 4:2. Custodians are stewards, not owners. Mixing entrusted assets is theft. Modern mapping includes regulated custody like Ripple custody, OCC, NYDFS standards, segregation of customer assets, and clear chain of title. This directly confronts the unbiblical practice of rehypothecation and fractional reserve deception. Fourth, render unto Caesar maps to lawful monetary authority without tyranny. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. Matthew 22:21. Lawful authority has a role, but authority is bounded, not absolute. Modern mapping shows OCC oversight, treasury coordination, and regulated dollar instruments like RLUSD. This is not rebellion against government. It is proper alignment between authority and accountability. Fifth, no usury, no endless chains, maps to instant settlement, and no counterparty risk. The borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:7. Do not charge interest to your brother. Deuteronomy 23:19. Debt chains enslave. Time-based manipulation of money is unjust. Modern mapping shows atomic settlement, no nostro vostro delays, and reduced dependency on perpetual credit cycles. Instant finality breaks the chains of structural financial servitude. Sixth, light exposes darkness, maps to transparency over secrecy. For nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed. Luke 8:17. Darkness thrives in opacity. Light brings accountability. Modern mapping includes on-ledger auditability, regulatory traceability, and reduced shadow banking. This system doesn't create righteousness, but it removes cover for unrighteousness. Seventh, money as a servant maps to programmable rules, not human whim. A just balance and scales belong to the Lord. Proverbs 16:11. Rules over rulers, law over discretion. Modern mapping shows protocol enforced settlement rules, deterministic outcomes, and reduced human manipulation. When money obeys rules instead of men, tyranny weakens. The unified biblical conclusion: what's forming is not a new invention. It is the realignment of money with God's original design. Truthful, measurable, accountable, servant-based, law-bounded. God is not restoring Babel. He is restoring balance. Scripture never condemns technology. It condemns misaligned hearts and unjust systems. This monetary shift doesn't save souls, but it removes structural incentives to lie, steal, and dominate. That alone is a mercy. Jubilee was never a romance just law. Jubilee is established in Leviticus 25. It was not symbolic. It was operational economic law. Every 50th year, debts were released. Land returned to original families. Slaves were freed. Economic clocks were reset. Accumulated imbalance was unwound. You shall proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. Leviticus 25:10. This verse is literally engraved on the Liberty Bell. Jubilee was God's admission that even lawful systems decay when time, interest, and power compound. The core principle of Jubilee, often missed. Jubilee was not charity. It was anti-permanence of injustice. God never allowed debt to become eternal, property to be irreversibly captured, families to be structurally locked out of provision, or one generation's mistake to enslave the next. Why? Because ownership ultimately belongs to God, not creditors. The land must not be sold permanently because the land is mine. Leviticus 25:23. Here's the sober realization most people miss. Modern financial systems remove Jubilee but kept compounding interest. That creates mathematical slavery, even without malice. Jubilee Principle 1. Time cannot be weaponized. Debt had a time limit. Time itself could not be used as a weapon. Modern violations include perpetual debt, infinite rollovers, compounding interest without reset, and intergenerational bondage. Modern realignment signals show instant settlement, reduced reliance on credit float, and elimination of multi-day reconciliation games. When money settles instantly, time loses its power to enslave. That is Jubilee logic. Jubilee Principle 2. Land and productive assets must return to families. Land equals life. God prevented permanent asset capture. Modern parallels include tokenization of real-world assets, transparent ownership records, immutable title tracking, and fractional access without dispossession. This is not confiscation. It is restoration of clarity of ownership. Jubilee doesn't destroy wealth. It prevents monopolization through time and leverage. The core fear: Jubilee breaks the spell of forever. Every unjust system relies on one illusion. This arrangement is permanent. Jubilee shatters that illusion. God hard-coded into his law a reminder that no debt is eternal, no asset capture is final, no advantage lasts forever, and no steward becomes owner. Christ and the final terror of Jubilee. Jesus didn't threaten Jubilee, he fulfilled it. Today, this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing, Luke 4:21, that terrified religious elites, economic controllers, and political power brokers. Why? Because Jubilee removes leverage, exposes hearts, ends control, and frees captives, both economically and spiritually. Jubilee terrifies anyone whose power requires endless debt, hidden books, perpetual control, and fear-based obedience. But to everyone else, Jubilee is not collapse, it is release, not chaos, correction, not punishment, mercy embedded in law. Now, spiritual positioning. This is primary. Everything else flows from it. First, detach identity from systems that are passing away. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth. Matthew 6:19. This does not mean rejecting wealth. It means rejecting identity dependence on titles, balances, institutions, gatekeepers, and security built on leverage. The posture is, I am not owned by this system, therefore I can use it without fear. Those who panic are those whose sense of self is threatened. Our job is not to time resets, predict markets, or outsmart elites. Our job is to be found faithful. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. Luke 16:10. Faithfulness is recession proof. It is reset proof. It is jubilee proof. Jubilee does not reward the smartest, the fastest, the loudest, or the most aggressive. It favors the humble, the honest, the light-bearing, and the faithful steward. God never collapses systems to punish the righteous. He corrects systems to free them. Position your heart first. Your hands will follow naturally.
Is the stupidity of the vast herd of American sheeple out there that think they know something and they don't even know what planet they're on, to tell you the truth.
No, they don't. Simple things like private banks print the money and enslave everyone. Simple things like Clinton's a transnational agent. Well, your book, Behold a Pale Horse, how many copies are out? Quite a few.
I have no idea. It's been the #1 underground bestseller of all time with no advertising whatsoever. People sell it on the street corners in New York City. Barnes and Noble had to take it off the shelf in their New York City bookstore because it's, by their own admission, it's the most stolen book in their inventory.
The most stolen book in their inventory.
Yeah.
Well, I know people got tons of them around here. Why don't you tell people, sir, just basically an overview of what Behold a Pale Horse tells the public? And now it's even more incredible that so much of what you've written has come true in the last 8 years.
Yeah, every prediction that I ever made has come true, except for one. That was only because I had not realized that they had gone as far as they have. And that prediction that I was wrong about was that Manuel Noriega could not be tried in American court, sentenced to an American prison, as he was the head of a sovereign nation and thus had diplomatic immunity, just like anyone he would send to our country to represent his country. And of course, that certainly proves that no one in the world is safe now from the encroaching New World Order, and they can go after anybody they want to, including the President of the United States if they want to. And Americans don't understand that. They think we can go after somebody that's the head of a foreign country, but we're still safe. We're not safe. Nobody's safe anymore.
That's because the global mafia runs things, and our president's just a little drill bit that a little front man, a little pitch man. Where do you think things are going to be in the next 2 years?
Well, either Americans are going to wake up and they're going to stand up in unison and take up arms and challenge the federal government to step back within the boundaries of the Constitution, or there's going to be a civil war in this country. The only alternative to that is total enslavement of the entire human race on a global scale, because that's where this is going. This is all about a one-world totalitarian socialist government. It's about destroying all existing nation states, destroying all existing religions, save the religion of those who are bringing this about, which is the secular humanist socialist religion.
That way you can devalue human life and kill people.
Well, they're already doing that.
Yes, they are.
And they've already convinced the American people that it's okay. The people whose ancestors came to the New World to escape religious persecution in the Old World stood and watched the Branch Davidians burn, including all of their children, all of their women, and they cheered that it was because they were a bunch of religious fanatics. I heard Christians say that. I heard Orthodox Jews say that. I heard Baptists say it. I heard Catholics say it. And to their shame, I have to tell them that they are not religious, moral people. They are stupid, ignorant people who are on the verge of enslavement. They're going to deserve exactly what they get. I have no sympathy for them whatsoever anymore. I used to cry big alligator tears for them in their ignorance, and I used to do everything I could to wake them up. I've drawn my line in the sand, and I'm going to do what's right by God, and I don't give a damn who cares or who likes it or who doesn't, even if it means I have to die on my doorstep.
Well, now we're getting to what's been happening. The feds are saying that you did show up for a court date, but they never gave you a subpoena, did they?
We have never received any subpoena, no notification, no nothing. Not only will I not come in, but if the Civil War has to start right here, it will. I am not a tax fraud or a tax cheat. I pay all legal, lawful, and constitutional taxes, which I am required to pay. I've never defrauded any bank or any person in my entire life, and I will protect my rights with the tools given to me by the founders in case it should ever come to this. If the rest of the people want to proceed into the pens and get sheared and then continue up the ramp to the slaughter, that's their business. No matter what happens here, I win.
Some people are sitting back and saying, listen to Mr. Cooper, talking about people being killed. That never happens. Governments never do that. Every government in the world this century has engaged in slaughter. Almost every government. Look at the giant death toll that's so-called communist. It's in the hundreds of millions this century.
Why do we have to look at the communists? It's happening right here in the United States. Has been for quite some time. The only ones that have reached the public eye are the Weaver family and the Branch Davidians in Waco, Texas. But it's happened on a large scale all across this country in every state. It usually is contained at the local level. And one of the indications that you will know that I'm right is that you haven't seen what's happening here on any of the major news networks, and you're not going to, because I've taken a stance documented in the law. I've posted it on my webpage. I have stated that I am a portion of the unorganized militia of the state of Arizona in the United States of America for many years, and that my stance is well-grounded. I'm right, I have a right to do what I'm doing, and anybody that comes up here tries to encroach upon my right to take away the protection of the Constitution from me and my family is going to get a bullet, and that's just the way it is.
Just to go back to what you just hinted at is the compartmentalization of news. We stopped, myself and a few others in this town, stopped the Delta Force from coming and doing secret military training and paying off our police chief. Now, the San Antonio police chief, a man that you ought to be aware of, is Al A. Philippus, and I went down and got an interview face-to-face on videotape, and I've actually put the audio here on the show several times, where he said they tried to bribe him. They were very unprofessional. No was never no. They were out of their jurisdiction, and they wanted to use live ammunition. They're practicing taking over police stations. Shouldn't our police realize that they're going to be some of the first people that will be going?
Well, they might if they weren't stupid sheeple like the rest of the herd. But the truth is, the policemen came right out of the community where the sheeple live. Why would anybody think that they're going to be any smarter than the rest of the animals out there?
So you think most of them will go along? Well, I told Philippus to his face on tape, I said, well, what you've done here, sir, you're probably going to pay for in the future.
Well, it's absolutely true. He is a big exception. There are only about 3 sheriffs in the entire country who know what their authority is and have guts to take a stand. This is the only police chief that I've ever heard of who's taken the proper stand. So if you want to know if they're going to go along with it, yeah, they'll go along with it to get their little paycheck. See, they've sold their country out for what? $20,000 a year, $30,000 a year? That's pretty cheap, isn't it?
It's pretty sick. It is.
And for maybe they'll get a retirement check in 20 or 30 years. So they sold their whole country out. They sold their church.
הבנתם? זה בכל מדינה שהשוטרים נמכרו, והם הפכו להיות נגד הציבור, כאשר מה שהם מסתכלים זה שקונים אותם בצ'ק, שבשבילהם זה משמעותי כאילו לכל אחד, כן? אבל מעלים להם כאילו את המשכורת, אם תעשו ככה או ככה, או קונים אותם במה שהוא אומר בפייצ'ק. מה שהוא אמר על עצמו, שהוא ריבון והוא הולך לפי החוקה, ואם מישהו ינסה להגיד לו איזה שהם דברים כדי להוציא אותו ולקחת אותו, הוא ישר שולף אקדח ויורה בו. כי אין להם סמכות. בקיצור, אני אמשיך הלאה.
Children's future. They sold their grandchildren's future and their great-grandchildren whom they haven't even seen yet.
Now, Mr. Cooper, I understand what you're talking about, and I find out more every day. Just a year ago, I still couldn't accept some of this. Even you yourself, when I talked to you last week, said it took you years of studying a long time ago to finally understand it all. And people's mindset, they think of the government as made up of the same go along, get along. They don't understand the avarice and just how vicious and demented and inbred these people are.
Well, in the first place, you're wrong in your premise. They don't think at all. That's why commercials are 30 seconds long. That is the attention span of the average American sheeple. They can't think beyond 30 seconds. That's
תקשיבו איך הוא מדבר על הכבשים, שהם לא מסוגלים להתרכז ולחשוב, הם לא מסוגלים לחשוב יותר מאשר 30 שניות. לכן יש כל הזמן פרסומות בטלוויזיה.
why no American company plans ahead more than about 2 or 3 months.
That's true. We have no long-term strategic goal for this country.
That's right, and that's why we're getting beat by the Marxist socialist communists, because they have 5-year plans, 10-year plans, 15-year plans, 25-year plans, and 50-year plans, and they stick to them.
Man, absolutely. Well, it's scary then. What's going to happen? It's just going to be, I think that
either the American people are going to become slaves within just a few years, and it's going to be an enslavement like nobody can even dream of, and it's going to extend worldwide, and we're the only people that can stop it, because we're the only people in the world still who have the capability,
have the arms
and the arms to be able to stop it. Or there's going to be a civil war which will last between 5 and 15 years to restore constitutional Republican government and freedom and liberty worldwide.
Well, that's the point. Even though most people are sheep, there is that between 5 and 10 million people that once it starts, I think more people will come out. And I don't want this to happen. This is just going to wreck the nation.
I don't want it to happen either. Ever since I saw the plan back in 1971 and 72 when I was on the intelligence briefing team for Think Back Fleet to bring about one world totalitarian socialist government, and when I saw that the United States was behind the whole thing, this is not coming from without. The United States created the United Nations.
Yes,
the United States created the European Union that has just been formed.
Well, you're saying the United
States is acting as the world police force right now.
When you're saying the United States, wouldn't you say a foreign aristocracy out of New York and Boston?
No.
That controls our nation?
The United States, with its headquarters in Washington, D.C.
District of Columbia.
It is stated and avowed policy of the United States government to create world government over the actions of all sovereign nations and existing religions around this world.
Why don't you...
I'm telling you that I saw that plan while I was in the Office of Naval Intelligence on the intelligence briefing team, the Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Fleet.
Would you elaborate on that just a little bit?
That's what the Behold the Pale Horse is all about.
I understand.
That's what's in that book.
Well, I know the story, but a lot of people that are listening, and I'm sure that will go out and get Behold the Pale Horse, will talk about those military briefings. And I guess these people were proud that they were part of this power?
Oh, absolutely. This has been a goal for this. It's the reason this country was founded, and Americans don't understand that. Founding fathers, many of them were deists. They were members of the secret society. Some of them were members of the Illuminati. They created this country and gave the common man freedom for the first time in the history of the world, made him a king in his own right. They told him what he had to do to keep his freedom and what he would lose if he didn't do it. And when they did this, giving the common man freedom, it toppled all the kings and queens off their thrones all around the world, and that was the major goal of establishing this country. If the common man could have been vigilant and maintained his freedom and not given in to the I want and I want, and I deserve, and you got to feed me, and you got to do this, you got to take care of me, and change my diaper, and wipe my butt, and get me a job, and entertain me, and all that kind of stuff, which always leads back into what they call democracy, which always leads into socialism, which ends goal dated by Marx and Lenin is communism.
What did you first think when you saw this openly being discussed in the top levels of the military?
Well, it shocked the hell out of me, but they thought I was one of them. It was an accident that I got in there. I'd been a member of the Demolay Society when I was 13 years old, only attended 3 meetings, and then my father was transferred to Japan. I never saw another lodge and never went to another meeting. That was the end of that. And I filled out all my documentation for my top secret QSI security clearance, which was required to be able to work in the command center and on the briefing team at King Pac Fleet. I didn't see Demolay on there, so I checked Freemason. And when I checked Freemason, that's what opened all the doors and got me the security clearance and put me in those positions to be able to see what I saw. And I think the hand of God was working, and that happened so that I would be able to warn his people of what was coming. And I've been doing that ever since. I didn't see absolutely everything, but I saw enough to give me an edge and a vast head start on anybody that's ever lived before in the public sector that's not normally privy to this information. And I spent ever since researching to find out what it all meant and where we're going.
Why are they gearing up like this? Why is our county building a 3-acre under the roof helicopter base? Just the warehouse is 3 acres under the roof. Why are our police going and training at Fort Hood with the military? What does this mean to the public?
Well, because they know what's coming. They know that there's a hardcore group of American men and women who are devout, religious, moral people who love freedom and are dedicated to the concepts of liberty and freedom and will fight to protect and defend constitutional Republican government against anything that comes along. And when that begins, it's going to be a terrible, terrible thing. I've spent most of my adult life trying to warn people and wake up enough people so that this did not have to happen, because I know it's going to be terrible. Nobody could come and invade this country and enslave the American people. The only way it could be done is from within if the American people allowed it to be done.
What is the main goal of biometrics, retina scanning, thumb scanning? In my opinion, it is total loss of control of your destiny. If the IRS doesn't like you now, they'll just come and take your house. If the IRS doesn't like you now, they'll shut your card off.
Well, let me give you a vision of the future. There will be no money, won't be any driver's licenses, there won't be any insurance cards or anything like that. Everybody will have an account on a...
שמעתם? לא יהיה כסף, לא יהיה רישיון נהיגה, לא יהיה כלום. יהיה רק, everybody will have an account on a computer.
Computer. Everybody will have a computer chip implant somewhere on their body that will access the computer. Everybody, when they go to work, will get so many credits for that work, and they can go out and wave their little computer chip in their hand or whatever it is under a scanner at the supermarket and buy whatever they've got credits to buy. If they don't have credits, they got to stay home until they get some credits.
Let me stop you for a second. I read this almost every week, at least once, and it's from the April 27, 1997 Time Magazine, The Future of Money. I'm sure you've read it. And it openly on page 51, and anybody out there that thinks Mr. Cooper or I are BSing you, go read it. And it says the best part, now this is their word, the best part about it is your daughter in the near future can have a chip under her skin and you won't have to buy the drinks for her at the bar. I mean, everything's insane about that paragraph. And the whole 10-page article is about how great the smart card is and then the chip. And as we know, Time Magazine is a filthy elitist propaganda rag. So I can't see how anybody would deny this. But I guess most people only see it as a convenience.
What's insane about it is that the American people think that that would be convenient or that that would be good for them. It is the ultimate in-run goal to enslave the populace and to steal what's left that's not already stolen by the elite who are engineering and machinizing all of this stuff to make it come about.
Now,
the goal of the debt-based economy is not to get caught stealing. And that's what they're doing, stealing the wealth and the substance and the nation right out from under us. That's the only end result that can come out of a debt-based economy. And the only way that they can't get caught is if the people allow them to go to a cashless system. Then they can never get caught. But if they don't go to a cashless system, eventually the economy will collapse and they're going to get caught.
That's exactly it.
And
In
that's
fact,
why they want to go to a cashless system, and that's why they ultimately have to. Anybody understands how this economy works and what the end result of a debt-based economy where the interest is never created or printed and the way that it works.
it's a fiat Ponzi scheme.
That it's got to collapse or they have to go to a totally cashless system in order that they don't get caught and are able to perpetuate the theft.
So what you're saying is that we have a fiat Ponzi scheme, con game government, monetary system based on fractional reserve banking, and that the money machines are printing out of control. I talked to Congressman Ron Paul a few weeks ago, and he said, yes, the Federal Reserve is printing 10% more money into the supply every 6 to 8 months. So this is creating this false prosperity, and the public just loves it. But meanwhile, they're just coaxing us in to this cashless society so the fairy tale can continue.
That's exactly right.
Let's go back. And
And the only way to keep it going until they do that is to keep creating more money, which creates more inflation, which devalues the value of what everybody is earning and making. And that's why everybody feels more and more strain every year and keeps sucking more and more out of the system through the focused internal revenue service income tax system so that they can keep from getting caught as long as possible.
Oh, but that's been reformed. It got reformed last week. Didn't you hear? Oh, boy.
Anybody that believes that is not playing with a full. In fact, I ain't playing with a deck of cards. They're playing with matchsticks.
Well, I'll never forget. President Clinton got up there on TV 6, 8 months ago, or a year ago now, and drew that big zero on a white piece of paper. And then I had people coming up to me on the street saying, Mr. Jones, have you heard the budget's balanced, the deficit's fixed? That simple thing, it's like they're 3-year-olds.
Well, they are 3-year-olds. That's their mentality. The average American has never had an original thought in his entire life or her entire life. And if they're not told what to think, they cannot think. Clinton didn't do anything except eliminate the deficit. You know how you eliminate the deficit? You either don't spend as much so that you stay within the bounds allotted by Congress, or you have Congress pass more allotment so that you can spend more than what you need to spend.
Yeah, I mean,
did not pay off the national debt, did not balance the budget.
Well, yes, if I could give myself endless pay raises, I could go out and buy skyscrapers and 1,000 Cadillacs and 100 Mercedes. As long as I
will not have a deficit. A deficit is when you spend more than what you've been given.
Exactly.
That's a deficit. So when he says we got a zero deficit, that means absolutely nothing except Congress is allotting more money for the government to spend because the government is not spending less. They're spending more than they ever have had.
They are spending more, and they're using this to beef up the police state. It's obvious to anybody that honestly looks at it. Back to what's happening with you. Now, I have run documentaries that you've been involved with many times here on television in Austin, and like Reichstag 95 and others. And those are, people said that those are the most educational and that they do enjoy them. But talk a little bit about how you were at the top of Bill Clinton's FBI list.
Well, ever since 1988, when I began telling the world, not just the American people, but the world, about Majesty 12, which is the plan to enslave the human race in a world totalitarian socialist government, the merger of the military of the United States and what used to be known as the old Soviet Union under NATO, which is occurring now, to create the world police force. Most people don't understand that NATO is an arm of the United Nations. It was formed under the auspices of the United Nations Charter and takes its orders from the Security Council.
אני הצעתי חשבון בנק עולמי, שכל אחד היה, ברגע שזה קורס, שיהיה לו את הביטחון בעוד מספר ימים, אני לא יכולה להגיד בדיוק תאריך, אבל זה כבר מוכן וזה עלול, זה יכול להתחיל כבר כל יום, ואז אפשר לסחור אחד עם השני. העסק שהיום אתם עובדים ומשלמים מס לגוף זר, שאתם לא צריכים לשלם שום מס, אתם שמים את העסק, רושמים אותו, כאשר אתם מצירים חזרה לאדמה, העסק שלכם בתוך אותה בנק בינלאומי של האנשים, וסוחרים אחד בין השני, אתם מקבלים כרטיס בשביל לשלם את כל הדברים שלכם. אנשים פונים אליי, אני לא יכול לשלם חשבון חשמל, יש לך דרך? לא. אתם תוכלו לשלם את הכל. לשלם חשמל, תוכלו לשלם את המים, תוכלו לשלם קנסות, תוכלו לשלם את המשכנתה. יהיה לכם את הכוח לבנות מחדש, ואתם לא רוצים. כמה כבשים, וגם כל הקבוצות, מהקבוצה הזאת של יורם מורים שאני נכנסתי בה, כולם מדברים על כל הדברים, ההוא עשה ככה, ההוא אמר ככה, וההוא נפל, וההוא התרגז, וההוא התעצבן, ויש שם שחקנים, חבל על הזמן. עכשיו, כשאני מעיזה להגיד משהו, אומרים, אז תכיני את, אז תשימי כאן מכתב. כאילו, הם פשוט לא מבינים כמה צריך לעבוד בשביל לדעת איך לבצע מכתב נכון, לא שכמו בתחום הספינה שהם רגילים להתנהל עם העורכי דין שעד היום הם עשו. הם לא קולטים שהם צריכים לעשות דילית במוח בכל מה שלמדו מקום המדינה, הכל שקר. כל צעד שהם עושים כל יום הוא כולו שקר. ללמוד מחדש חוקים שונים לחלוטין, חוקים לאנשים חיים. אז אני באה עם הצעה פשוטה, קחו, תשנו את הסטטוס, יש חשבון שיכול להציל אתכם לגמרי, לצאת מהמצב, תשנו את הסטטוס, תהיו ביחד, תקימו ממשל עצמאי, יש עכשיו הזדמנות, כולם בורחים שם מהכנסת, כל מכתב, כל פעם שאנחנו שולחים איזה מכתב, הוא התפטר, הוא עזב, הוא איננו, אנחנו לא יודעים כלום מי נמצא, מי לא נמצא, מי מסמן וי על מוצאים חוק, מסמנים וי, הכל עבר, כי זה דיגיטלי, הכל עבר, אף אחד לא יודע כלום. הכל פסול, לא נותנים לנו מי בחר, מה בחר, שום דבר. לכן, ועוד אנשים מדברים בחירות, כאילו, אם יבוא לכם בנט או איזה שמוק אחר, הוא יפתור לכם את הבעיה? לא, כי מי ששייך לו הפרלמנט הזה, זה של הנאצים. השב"כ מגן עליהם. כל החבורה של האידיוטים, של השטופי מוח, לאורך כל מקום המדינה, שמנהל את זה גוף זר. זה לא בשבילנו, זה לא עבורנו, צריך לשנות את השיטה. וכל הקבוצות וואטסאפ עד היום, כל האלה עם הפירמידות, כל אלה עם הכל טוב ויפה, הבנו, ראינו, פלשו, אבל יש ללמוד בסיס, איך יוצאים מזה, איך מנסים לשנות. היחידים שבעולם הזה, כן, ש40 שנה עובדים ומחפשים וחופרים, ו40 שנה לקח להם להבין, בדיוק כמו שביל, אני רציתי להגיד ביל גייטס, קופר, בדיוק כמו שהוא מסביר לאנשים והוא התייאש והוא חוזר ואומר איך אנשים יש להם מוח של גיל 3. וזה בדיוק הנקודה, שתמיד ישראל הלכה אחרי ארצות הברית, אחרי מוח של גיל 3. מעבר לזה, אין להם יכולת חשיבה ולהסתגל קדימה, הם חיים את הרגע, כי מחר אולי נמות, כי ככה הרגילו אותם. אז צריך לצאת מהמצב הזה, צריך לשנות. וכמה אפשר לדבר? יש דרך, יש שינוי. והיחידים שעשו את זה במשך 40 שנה, זה אנשים שידעו מה קורה בארצות הברית. אנשים שגילו את התרמית בכל המובנים. יצאה הכרזה מארצות הברית ב-25 לנובמבר, שממשל פנסילבניה לקחו חזרה האנשים, זה אומר לא התאגידים יותר שולטים בשני מקומות בארצות הברית. עכשיו זה כנראה כבר המשיך הלאה, ההודעות עברו לכל המדינות, וזה מתפשט כמו שדה קוצים. אז שתבינו שהקבל מחזיק יפה בארץ, כי אנשים עוד מאמינים שצריך ללכת להתחסן, עוד מאמינים שיש מגפות, ושאפילו את הילדים הם חלקם, הרבה מאוד כבר לא, אבל לקח 6 שנים. וכל חיסון שמקבלים, זה שלא נדע. אין בכלל מה לדבר להיכנס לבתי חולים, יש להם פרוטוקולים לגילאים מסוימים, איך משמידים, אתה נכנס לניתוח, אתה לא יודע איך תצא. כי הם גם מזריקים דברים שאתה לא, בלי אפילו לשאול אותך, הם אומרים חתמת, אתה גם לא יודע ואתה לא מודע למה אתה חותם אצלהם. אז יש את הבנק הבינלאומי, הוא נותן לכם כרטיסים, אם זה לביטוחים, אם זה לקופת חולים, אם זה להכל, אתם לא צריכים לקחת מתאגיד שום הטבות. אתם יכולים לזרוק את הכל, אבל עכשיו שהמונים יתעוררו וירוצו לקחת את מה שמגיע להם, לכל אחד מגיע את הכסף הזה. ירוצו לקחת את הכסף הזה, המונים ידבקו, זה ייקח זמן. ואנחנו צריכים כל רגע, עכשיו כל רגע צריכים את הכסף הזה, עזרה לאנשים. אם היו מקימים אפילו אספת עם, מה הבעיה בשביל ישראלים לקום, להתאחד, להקים ממשל עצמאי, ללמוד קצת, אני משתגעת. אני פשוט, ושכבר אתה בא ואתה מציע לאנשים, אז הוא אומר, מה אני עכשיו אשב, אני אלמד, מה, אני אין לי מושג, אין לי זה, אני לא מוכן, אף אחד לא, אפילו במצב לפני שחיטה, כשאתם רואים שהרוצחים מסתובבים חופשיים, אחרי שרצחו בנו בשביעי באוקטובר, רצחו, אלה מסתובבים חופשי במדינה, ואנשים עוד מצדיעים להם, מעבירים חוק עוד שנייה שלוקחים את המים, עוד מצדיעים, עוד מסתכלים על זה באמת, הולכים לרשות התאגידים ושואלים אותם כמה אתם רוצים שנקנה אתכם. הולכים לדואר, תשלפו אקדח. אין להם סמכות היה, לא, אנחנו העם לא נתנו את האישור הזה. אז הם יכולים לקבל חלק מהכסף, שרק יצאו. צריכים גם לדעת שכדי לקחת בחזרה את הרכוש שלנו שנגנב, אתם חייבים באספות עם, הצהרה כלל עולמית, ודרישה, ויש דרך. אבל לשבת לספר כל יום, ההוא הוציא חוק כזה, ההוא דיבר בכנסת, בפרלמנט, וההוא אמר ככה, וזה החייל הלך והערבי הוציא, דקר אותו, וההוא, כאילו כמה? 6 שנים והמונים מתים, אני לא יודעת אם כבר יש 2.5 מיליון שחוסלו מהחיסונים, מכל דבר. הרי הם בשליטה במעקב בהכל והם הורגים חופשי עם כל המכשירים שיש להם. עם כל הסו-קול טכנולוגיה, מדינת ישראל נבנתה בשביל הלבנת הון וטכנולוגיה וכל השטויות האלה. למה היא נבנתה? לא בשביל להציל יהודים.
America say that we are subject to the dictate or the jurisdiction or the rulings of a world court? Does it say that anywhere in the Constitution?
No, it doesn't. And when I watch the local news, all I hear is how wonderful the United Nations is. Our public are being indoctrinated about this.
You can't pay off a debt with a debt, so you never really.
שמעתם, אתם לא יכולים לשלם חוב עם חוב. כמו המשכנתה. So you never really purchased anything, כאילו, אתה בעצם לא רכשת אף פעם כלום.
Purchase anything in this country, in this debt-based economy with the fiat Federal Reserve note, all you do is take possession under a lease and the ownership stays with the government. That's why you get a warrant deed when you pay off your house instead of the patent title to the property. And that's why you get a certificate of title when you think you paid for your automobile instead of the actual patent title to that property.
This is all being done with contract fraud, and people can't even.
It is fraud. It's all fraud.
That's why, I catch myself as I get deeper and deeper into this. becoming more angry, more flat out. I guess I'm at the point where you said that you were several years ago, where you're just sad about it because you see the people thinking they have a grasp of what's happening in the civilization. But I've read enough history, I know enough about the country and what's been happening to realize that pretty much everything that you're told in the media has lies weaved right into it.
Oh, yeah.
So you think in the next 2 years, we're headed into some...
I didn't say in the next 2 years. I said in the next very few years. I don't have a crystal ball. God does not whisper in my ear. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not a psychic.
Well, sir,
But I can.
I'm none of those things either.
From what I saw in that plan when I was with ONI and what I have researched since then tells me that within a very few years, the American people are either going to be totally enslaved in the worst enslavement that you can even dream of, or there's going to be a civil war actively being fought under the most terrible conditions in this country.
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but it's pretty simple to predict what these guys are going to do now that they're out in the open. I mean, 10 years ago, it wasn't so out in the open. Now you turn on the TV, UN World Court, Clinton pushes national ID card. You turn on Lair News Hour. Secret military teams are training with your local police. It's pretty much in your face now, and I don't know if Clinton wants to leave office, or maybe he wants to go be head of the UN or something. Who do you think, as leaders from your intelligence networks, do you think are on the horizon? Who do you think the next president will be? Do you think?
Why do I care? They're not my leaders, and it's not my government anymore.
So the point
They
is,
have subverted my government, destroyed it from within, and my only hope is that I can find enough good American patriots who are moral, who are good men, who understand what liberty and freedom is all about, to go in there and restore constitutional Republican government by any method that it requires, including the force of arms.
so you,
Otherwise, my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren are going to be slaves.
so you've totally turned your back completely on the festering system, and
It's not my system. It is not operating within the boundaries of the Constitution. They have thrown the Constitution out. It is treason in operation. There is a subversion of government going on as we speak in the halls of government throughout this country, not just in Washington, D.C. And
so you're saying it is criminal enterprise, incredibly sophisticated, controlling Hollywood, the universities, and the major mass media through foundation money and through control of finance, and all their whores and all their pomps and all their little agents don't mean a damn to you. You're going to take care of your family, try to educate the public, and just continue to prepare. And you're saying that you have not committed any crimes, you're not bothering anybody, and if the feds tried to come and take your home and take your family, that you're going to oppose them with force of arms.
absolutely, they have declared war upon me and all patriots and everybody in this country who is a loyal constitutionalist, who has taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And if the Civil War has to start on my doorstep, that's a good place to be. So in line with me.
So the Civil War has to
Start
start.
somewhere, might as well start.
What you have to do is navigate the transition. But a lot of the benefit of the transition is virtually it's there. Okay. It's already in place. And all we have to do is get through that first April 15th and not send a damn thing anywhere and not worry about it. And then it will be real to each and every one of us that the scourge is over and that peonage is over and that having to pay bills that aren't ours is over. It's done. So it may not really hit people until a little later in the year. I mean, no matter what we do with the banks, and no matter if people start getting the money back and they're looking at it and going, oh, well, this is money that I'm owed, that this will begin to, click into their brains that this is money that has been returned to me because, I paid all this extra, right? Or my grandparents paid all this extra. So that'll become real. And the freedom from things like revenue-based traffic stops. That'll all go away. Pay roads, toll highways, all that will go away. I mean, a lot of the things that really irritate people and that really cause a lot of extra work and extra worry will simply be gone in the new administration and the new situation that we find ourselves in. We'll have more work to do as assemblies, for sure. Please bear in mind that the role of the American government has always been to set the policies, and so there'll be more of that kind of work. You'll be taking on the judicial functions, and you'll have all of these courts that you'll have to administer. But you'll be picking up a lot of trained people, and your major struggle will be retraining them to function in a lawful manner, okay, and to function with the Geneva Bible and the Bouvier dictionary and American procedures. I mean, but like I said, lawyers are able to function in any of these systems of law. They just need a reasonable amount of time, maybe a year, to really understand, oh, well, this works this way in this system, and they'll get it. So there's going to be a period of transition, but one of the great things that I see happening is that these district courts that have been functioning in the states of the Union will be shut down. So we'll no longer have evictions and foreclosures and all of that stuff. We'll no longer have illegal confiscation of assets for property taxes or mortgages that we don't owe. That stuff will go away. And so everybody will be very relieved with that. And then these same courts that created all this trouble and did all these illegal acts and were responsible for these illegal acts of confiscation and aggravated identity theft will have to spend their days exonerating all of these cases as soon as possible and returning the confiscated property back to the original owners. And so the immediate drive is to start rolling that back with the most recent cases going back 10 years. And then we'll go back further than that for people. But, we're going to go, the first shall be last and the last shall be first, because we want to stop the harm where the harm is and roll it right back. So anyway, those things.
אני רציתי להביא לכם, הבאתי התחלה ראשונית של מישהו שנותן אור ודרך בצורה מסוימת, שהוא מאמין בעשייה כספית מסוימת, שתמיד נחמד לשמוע איך הוא משלב גם את בורא עולם, יחד עם, נכון שהוא מדבר על ישו, אבל זה לא משנה, אנחנו מדברים על הכלל, הוא מדבר על העשייה הכספית, על אסור לקחת ריבית, על ההסתכלות שלו בכל המערכת הזאת גם כן, בצורה העכשווית, ועל כלל האנושות שכולם צריכים לבוא יחד בטוב, ולקבל את הדברים לא כפי שהיינו עד עכשיו בתור עבדים. הדבר השני שהבאתי, שנכון שזה מלפני שנים, של ביל קופר, שהוא רואה את הדברים בצורה נחרדת, כן? שמדברת 25-30 שנה שהוא דיבר על הדברים האלה, והוא ראה את כל מה שמתכננים, והוא הסביר מה הולכים לעשות, ושהאמריקאים הולכים להיות בצורה מחרידה, העבדים, שמשהו שהם לא הכירו אף פעם. אז עכשיו הבאתי את המלחמה מהצד השני, מה שטענתי, אני נמצאת באותן קבוצות שאנחנו עובדים בשותפות עם ארצות הברית, ומאוד רציתי שהישראלים יהיו ביחד ויעבדו גם כן, ונוכל להתאחד עם כל בעיה שיש ולדווח, וביחד עם ארצות הברית. אבל ההתנהלות הייתה קשה מאוד בארץ. אני ניסיתי, אחד מנסה להשליך על השני, ואחד עדיין לא מסוגל לנתק את הדברים שלו, ולדעת, אוקיי, אני תורם למשהו לטובת הכלל, אלא לא, מה פתאום שאני אבזבז מזמני בחינם, או ההסתכלות הייתה נוראית, זאת אומרת, החוסר יכולת של פרגון ולתת ולעשות, אני מצטערת אם הייתי צריכה להיות גם קצת בוטה על קבוצות הוואטסאפ, אבל תבינו, כשאני רואה, אני נכנסת אחת לכמה זמן להסתכל, ואני רואה ששום דבר לא השתנה, וזה אותו דבר, והרבה מהאנשים שהיו בהתחלה בקבוצות הוואטסאפ נשרו, עזבו, ולמה לא שואלים? למה כמה בודדים שנותרו ממשיכים שמה? אני חושבת שזה זמן שכל הקבוצות האלה של הוואטסאפ צריכים להתאחד, צריכים לשנות את הסטטוס, יש את התצהירים, יש את הכל, זה לא דבר שעשיתי בשביל עצמי, בשביל עצמי אני פה באוסטרליה, אני לא צריכה את זה. עשיתי את זה במיוחד שאנשים בארץ, שלא היה להם מושג ודרך, איך לצאת חזרה, איך לחזור חזרה ולקחת את שלנו, ולהבין ששיקרו לנו בהכל. המיינד הוא קשה מאוד, במיוחד, ושאלה שלא הוזרקו היו צריכים להיות מספיק ערנים לקבל את ההבנה של אלה שבחרו ללכת עם השקר, עם הניווט הזו דרך הטלוויזיה, הצורת חיים שהכריחו אותנו יום יום לעבוד, היינו חוזרים עייפים למשפחה, לראות את הטלוויזיה, לשמוע את השקרים, כשאנחנו בעצם היינו מתוכנתים על שקרים לאורך כל הדרך. וכל אלה, מה נשאר לומר? סיום שנה, יש לכם פה הודעה חשובה מאוד, שכל הסיפור של רשות המיסים, אנה הייתה המובילה, אבל היו הרבה אמריקאים פטריוטים שנלחמו בדרך הזאת, המונים. בכל מדינה יש עכשיו את ההתנהלות הזאת והנהירה, לשנות את הסטטוס ולקחת חזרה את הממשל התאגידי הבריטי, יכול להישאר לו בוושינגטון די.סי, זה השטח שלו, ושייתן לנו להתנהל חופשי וכמובן היא דאגה לכל הנכסים שנלקחו מהעם האמריקאי, שהם יקבלו את זה חזרה, וכמובן גם את כל הכספים. אז אלה שאחראים לפשיטת רגל, זה לא האזרחים, אלא זה אותם אלה שעשו את הקומבינות השקריות עם כספים שחסרי ערך. כמובן שזה אותו דבר בישראל. אם מישהו אומר שמדינת ישראל יש לה חוב, הם צריכים להוכיח מאיפה הוא הביא את הדבר הזה ואת המסקנה הזאת. הכל שקרים, זה יצירת חובות, זה התנהלות לפי פונזי סקים, היה את ההוא בקטן עשה, שישב הרבה מיינדוף, שישב הרבה שנים בכלא, לא יודעת אם הוא כבר הלך נדמה לי לעולמו, לא זוכרת, יש לו את הילדים שלו כמובן, אבל הוא עשה בקטנה, וושינגטון די.סי עשתה את זה כלל עולמית. אז גם ישראל, תתכוננו שהרבה יקבלו הודעות בממשלה, ואם תראו שאנשים נעלמים, תבינו שכבר אין פרלמנט, שמי שמחזיק את זה זה האנשים הקטנים שמקבלים פקודות בשביל להרוג מי שינסה לעשות איזושהי פעולה יוצאת דופן. זאת אומרת, זה השב"כ, המשטרה, שאין להם, בדיוק כמו שדיברו על השוטרים, שמה חשבתם שהם יותר חכמים מהאוכלוסייה, הם כבשים, הם לא התנהלו בצורה חשיבה שונה. אז כולנו צריכים, כאן יש את ההודעה המשמחת מארצות הברית, וזה לקראת השנה החדשה. אז אני חושבת שיש צורך להקשיב טוב טוב ולראות, לראות איך הדברים התפתחו, והגיע הזמן לסגור את כל המשרדים האלה שיצרו 300 במקום 50, כי הם נוצרו בשביל לקחת מאיתנו כספים ואת הרכוש, וצריך פשוט לעלות לכנסת לסגור את הכל, אין מה לעשות. אלא אם אתם רוצים עכשיו לשבת, לעשות אספות העם ולהכריז, להכריז כלל עולמי שאתם על האדמה. תחדו ביחד, יש מלא חומר, הכל מסודר, איך לעשות, איך לארגן. באוסטרליה אנחנו כנראה אוטוטו, בעוד כמה חודשים, גם נכריז על ממשל עצמאי, ואז נעמיד את כולם במקום. אז אנחנו תקווה לשנה טובה, להתפתחות, שתבינו שהקבל עדיין יש לו כמו ראש הנחש, עדיין ימשיך לנסות לעשות מה שרק אפשר. אנחנו לא מעוניינים במלחמות, ולא מעוניינים מה שהם גרמו לניתוק בין האנשים, את החוסר אחדות, אנחנו רוצים להחזיר חזרה ולעשות את הביחד. זהו, אני עוד קצת אתן להקשיב לזה.
Will be stopped, so we'll no longer have evictions. We'll no longer have foreclosures. We'll no longer have property tax sales. All those evils that were being used to rob people and which were being used to take property under false pretenses, that's gone. So, I guess time for us to all kind of breathe a sigh of relief and say thank you, thank you, thank you to divine providence that showed the way and put the pieces together, and all of the people worldwide who've, banded together to make this happen, because if we hadn't had a lot of support all across the planet, we'd be just sitting here facing Donald Trump's administration, and they could do whatever they wanted to us. Now they're being forced to actually honor their service commitments and their contracts instead. And, so this whole British territorial business of using commercial corporations to usurp against the national governments is coming to an end. Not just here, but in Europe, in Japan, in Australia, and, all around the world, this evil is being put down. And, that's a global effort.
Well, and Anna, you probably hear this all the time, but one of the things that I hear that's common is, how come we're not seeing this, in plain sight, out in regular mainstream, channels, et cetera, et cetera. And it's been like this as long as I've been on the assembly, so I don't expect that we will get some, big formal announcement from, the talking heads on these major news networks or what have you. But even though we're not expecting anything like that, what I am wondering is, are you expecting anything like that? I mean, is the Pope, or the, or quote, King Charles, or any of these henchmen, is anyone going to come forward and say that it's time for Jubilee and now people all over the world are free? Is there going to be any kind of mainstream announcement other than the work that we have to do in terms of educating our local people and state people?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be done. It may be pretty quiet, you know. I think that just taking up the reins and
Right.
guiding the horses forward is the best policy so that people have a chance to actually learn. But let's face it, guys, the reality is that when you start getting your money, you're going to tell your kids, your grown kids, and your parents, if you still are lucky enough to have your parents, and your cousins and your uncles and your aunts and your best friend. And pretty soon everybody's going to be belly up to the trough because, hey, I can get my money back, and who isn't up to get their money back, or, to get a payment back that's essentially an inheritance from your parents and grandparents and great-grandparents for some of us. So everybody's going to want to get their money back. And in the process, they're going to have to learn a few things about, oh, well, where did this money come from? And, how does this work? And, what happened? How did this happen that I went from having to worry about every kind of tax on earth to suddenly being tax-free and getting a whole bunch of money back? So they're all going to be interested for that reason, if nothing else. And, among those that find this out, there are going to be people that are just amazed by the entire story of how, essentially a few Americans woke up and said, hey, and started working away, It's a fascinating story, and it's got lots of really dramatic chapters in it, where, horrendous things happened and really, wonderful things happened. And yeah, we got about 6 movies worth of just historical stuff to go through that, could be, I don't know if the word is dramatized, but documented, and people could see more directly, oh, well, this was supposed to happen and it didn't. Oh, and that wasn't supposed to happen and it did. And, I think that we have it down now to a point where we know what went wrong. And we know the time frame, we know who did it, we know where it started. It's sort of like tracking back, well, where did the cancer start? And we can do that now. So I would not be surprised if one of our early on efforts is just to document all the stuff that went into it. Okay, and so.
אוקיי, לסיום, מי שרוצה לראות את כל הוידאו, זה בערך 2 או משהו כזה, מדברת על הרבה דברים חשובים. אני רק רוצה לברך את כל אלה שתרמו וכל העשייה להגיע לרגע הזה. זה רגע שהוא מרגש ברמות, שמי שלא מבין מה שהם עברו ומה שנעשה מאחורי הקלעים, לא יוכל לקלוט את האסון שעמדו לעשות. ועדיין זה לא הסתיים, כן? עדיין הם מנסים. למרות שכבר הכל נחשף, ולמרות שהם לא יכולים לעשות דברים יותר מבחינה חוקית בארצות הברית, דברים צריכים, וכמובן שכל ההתחלה קשה, כל ההתחלה היא קשה. אז במעמד זה, I want to thank Anna and all the people that we have managed to reach to these amazing times. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Well,
Everybody who is interested can sit down and have a binge fest for a weekend, bring out the beer and the pretzels and you know, just see American history for the past 150 years on your TV. I know that my husband would just, you know, he would love to have that happen so that people would get some sort of a idea of what went into this, and you know, the David and Goliath nature of the whole effort, and how they used to use basically identity theft and impersonation as a means to throw us into jail and burn our houses and do all this evil unto us, just so that they could have their corporations. Essentially, folks, you are paying the taxes for their corporations. So, for, you know, people ask me about, well, you just brought up a good example. Only 6 major media cartels own the media outlets on the planet. And that is a form of oligarchic monopoly that's not even possible without monopoly inducement. Okay, so they've got 6 companies, and guess what? Those companies, which are already mega rich, right, aren't paying any taxes because you're paying those taxes for them. And so they have no reason. Their bottom line runs against telling you anything related to the truth. And the same thing with the universities. Their bottom line runs counter to educating you about anything that would be helpful to you to understand your own history or the law. Forget all that, because they're making money playing footsie with the usurpers. See, you've got corporations that have usurped against your government, and then they have created all these franchise corporations and have incorporated institutions that you trust, like the universities have all been incorporated. And so they're all running as this big business model, as if they were, you know, robber barons of the 19th century. And they're just looking at you as serfs and as workers. You know, you're the enemy, right? And they're just piling on all of their costs and their taxes. They're piling on you so that they can share out the actual costs that they should be paying. And so, yeah, they have a motive. They have a concealed conflict of interest that is leading to all of this stuff. Same thing with the health corporations. You know, we look at Pfizer and Moderna and those guys and the horrible things that they've done with the vaccine, quote unquote, right? They're in business to make money off your disease.
Well, and they're creating the disease.